We hear from venture capitalists, like, we add value. We are value add investors. Being able to ask that question, well, how?
You could build all the incredible applications on top of them, but if you couldn't trust that the data was accurate, it was all for nothing.
And it just feels like AI has sort of now become table stakes. You know, it is part of the platform.
I always ask in my interview questions, what are your favorite AI applications? Google is not going to go away. People have said, oh, this is the Google killer. No, they have Gemini. They're going to be just fine. But if it's no longer going to be a 95% market share business,
the more best-of-breed components you brought to bear on a problem, the more data problems you ultimately created. Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, where I get a chance to sit down with the brightest minds in commerce, where we unpack the secrets behind some of the industry's most iconic or soon-to-be iconic brands. Normally, I have a chance to sit down with brand operators, but today we're flipping that script a little bit. I'm thrilled to be joined by early-stage investor extraordinaire, Brent Murri, partner at M13. Brent, thanks for being on the pod.
I know, I'm very happy to be here, and it's going to be a fun format because literally we're flipping the script and I get to interview you a little bit as well. So it'll be fun.
Well, we'll see. It depends if you get through all my questions successfully and how much time we have. This is fun to be able to do this live. So we're together in Las Vegas, day one of Shop Talk, or day two, I guess, in the books. Busy day. We're doing this at the end of the day. So we'll try to bring the energy, but I appreciate you sitting down with me like this.
We got some energy drinks for later if we need them, but this is Shop Talk is the Super Bowl for e-com every year. So there's a lot to look forward to in these next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have known M13 for a little while, gotten to know you over the last year or so. But before we dive in, maybe let's start with give me the 3-minute rundown on who is Brent Murri and how did you get to M13?
Yeah, of course. So my journey into venture actually started in my undergrad. I went to BYU in Utah, and we had a student-run venture capital group called University Venture Fund. And, I came from rural Washington State. That's where I grew up. My dad was a home builder. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I had no idea what venture capital was. And so when I got that exposure in college, and we actually had a real fund from LPs that we got to make investments in early stage startups, it was such a eye-opening experience for me. Taught me a lot about entrepreneurship, and coming out of my undergrad, that's what I wanted to do eventually. Nobody really gets into venture that early in their career, so I decided to go the finance route, and I spent a couple of years in investment banking in San Francisco. Most of my time was spent at Lazard and their M&A group, where we represented a lot of the larger corporations in Silicon Valley. So we did a lot of buy-side acquisitions for Google and Microsoft, and really got to know that part of Silicon Valley very, very well. And so made the decision to leave and join one of those firms. So I joined Samsung on their mobile team, and for a year, really was tasked with disrupting from within. And so I was on the M&A group, the strategy group, the partnerships team, and we were really helping Samsung morph from being a hardware first company to more software and services, similar to what Apple has done with their ecosystem. And then I finally made it into venture and went to a firm called Battery Ventures.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I was at Battery for a couple of years, and that's where I cut my teeth, investing in late stage, more of enterprise software. And then I met the co-founders of M13, and that's where really my life changed for the better. Moved to Los Angeles from the Bay Area, joined M13 as the first employee, and we got to work. And it's been crazy to look 8 years back, after being there. And we've grown from 3 employees to a little over 45. One little tiny office in a almost seemed like an attic in Beverly Hills, to now 3 offices, San Francisco, LA, and New York. We have, we're on our 4th fund right now. And so it's just been quite a transformation. It feels like we're just scratching the surface, but the whole time I've been at M13, really investing in the leading software and now AI for the e-commerce category. And that's where I've spent the bulk of my career, building my venture track record.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've known M13 for 5 years. And what always fascinated about me about the fund was there was a focus early on consumer and on brands. And I think there was some really good early investments in that first wave of direct to consumer. And even today, although you're less focused on the brand side and more focused on the infrastructure that is powering those brands, when I see some of the events and the ecosystem that you contribute to, it is really like all in on consumer. So for those listening who don't know much about M13, like, in your own words, what makes the fund really special?
Yeah, a great transition, because we did, in the very early days of M13, we were investing directly into consumer brands. So the first investments made at the firm were all basically consumer technology and consumer brands. On the technology side, some of our early investments, Lyft and Pinterest, Ring, the doorbell names. Company. Yeah, they were great names. And on the brand side, Bonobos, Daily Harvest, FabFitFun, Rothy's, Tecovas, really great transformational brands now. But our DNA and start of investing in e-com gave us the right to win in a lot of these commerce infrastructure investments that we started. We transitioned really in, I would say, 2016, 2017 to starting investing in the e-commerce infrastructure that powered a lot of those brands. And, we haven't made a brand investment in 6 or 7 years, but because it is such an unfair advantage of us, we've continued to build out that ecosystem, because we realize having brands in our network helps our portfolio companies, once we invest in them. And we do a lot of events and a lot of networking around connecting commerce, technology, and brands. So that's one part of M13, how we operate. But the firm at a very high level, we're a seed and Series A focused firm. So we lead rounds in seed and Series A companies. Not just in commerce. I spend a lot of my time in commerce. A lot of my partners focus on healthcare, fintech, future of work. So those are our 4 verticals, including commerce, that we spend a lot of time in. We invest in AI and crypto as sort of horizontal layers across those verticals, so that we have extreme expertise in. And then really our big differentiator, and this is hopefully part of the reason we sold you to take our investment instead of others, is the support that we provide post-investment. We call it our propulsion team. In venture, people know it as a platform team or portfolio support. But we really, really lean heavily and invest a lot of the firm's resources into building that side of the house, because we believe that it's going to help move the needle with our portfolio companies. So if you look at M13 today, across those 3 offices, we have a little over 40 people. We have 10 investors at the firm and 30 full-time operators. So we have a 3-to-1 ratio of operational portfolio support to investor. And it just really goes to show where we're investing our resources. Everything is focused on post-investment.
Yeah.
And really getting to work with our founders and supporting them with everything from talent recruiting, go-to-market help, making brand introductions, product strategy help. We just believe that having those proactive resources for our founders gives them just a slight leg up on their competition, and we're in it really together.
Yeah, and I mean, as a founder, you need that support, and I think that's a great question for any early stage or less experienced founder to ask. When we hear from venture capitalists, like, we add value, we are value add investors, being able to ask that question, well, how? What does that look like? And the more I got to know the M13 team, like, that ratio is amazing. And we felt it early on. You kind of very casually buried the lead there. So by the time we already talked about this, we are at Shop Talk 2025. By the time this podcast comes out, we will have announced that M13 led the latest round of funding into Chord. So
very exciting.
First, thank you for that. Maybe a sort of a non-traditional story, but when we decided to go out and raise that round, M13 was the first fund that I called, because of the fact that I was impressed with your track record in commerce, and the focus you all had in sort of commerce infrastructure. And I thought what we were building was really going to resonate. And I thought some of these value-added services could help us get to the next level. And you politely passed. And we remained persistent. And we shifted our strategy, gave us really good feedback during that process. So maybe another lesson out there for founders is to keep going and not give up. And when you hear a no, it means don't be too discouraged. Like, take that feedback and ultimately get back to work. But I say all of that because I will selfishly now turn the conversation to Chord. And traditionally on the podcast, I don't like to go in there too much, but you have seen, given your experience, just a ton of data platforms, really sort of focused on the marketer, commerce infrastructure. There's a reason why you decided to invest in Chord. So I'd just be curious in your own words, what was it about our sort of smarter CDP that you think gives us a real shot to break through in this next wave of commerce?
Yeah. Going back to the point of us passing, rarely do investors pass on a company and then come back around, right? It's just once you decide you're in the investor seat, you're barraged with unlimited number of companies to invest in. And so you have to allocate your time accordingly. For you guys, there was something that resonated with us from the very first meeting. And it was a combination of you and your skill set and what you brought to the table, what you were doing in the market. It was more just the round structure that we passed on. It didn't make sense for us at that time. But then as we started to dive in and dive in more, there was a structure that was presented that was just very appealing, I think, to both parties. And so we didn't really pass on the business or the market opportunity. Once we found a round that made sense to everybody, we got very, very excited and leaned in very, very heavily. And then I got to give credit to one of our friends at Grow, John and Kevin from Grow, an agency that one of the leading growth agencies out there. They brought it back to us and said, you really need to double click on what Bryan is doing, because I'm telling you, it is a game changer for our clients. And when we have somebody like that that works day in and day out with these technologies, it really, it's a good proof point for us to dive in a little bit more. And so that was a big part of it. And really what I saw with you guys, yes, we've seen a lot of data plays. First, it started with you and the team building what you had built before with the headless platform, investing so many resources into that data infrastructure and the CDP gave you an unfair advantage that I believe not a lot of other founders in the category have, coupled with your vision of what you wanted to bring to market. And so a lot of what we invested in, a lot of what we've talked about post-investment is the AI copilot you're building for marketers, and taking that your domain expertise in data, helping elevate the right hypothesis decision making for marketers, really gives them a leg up. And that was the big vision that we invested in, is combining data, which we believe you can do better than others, with the marketing activation. That end-to-end platform is something we've heard time and time again from marketers want and desire. And we felt like you painted the most clear and articulate picture of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to that conversation, even like the conversation or the email exchange you and I had when you did pass, and you gave us more feedback than most investors would normally give. And I've been out there raising money now for a couple of years. And so you hear no a lot, and you've got to get good at hearing no. And we really took that feedback to heart. And I think that we did have infrastructure that we're really proud of, but we were perhaps lacking direction and this opportunity that was sitting there in front of us to take that infrastructure, to leverage what was happening with AI, and to come back with a more clear sense of purpose. And yes, to come back with a clear sense of purpose in terms of deal structure too. But I think it was really unique. I want to bring it back to Shop Talk a little bit. I was thinking, went back through some of my notes from 2024. AI was everywhere. It was the sort of like, if you're not investing in AI, if you're not building with AI, like you've been left behind. I don't know about you, but today I was walking around the show floor, and it just feels like AI has sort of now become table stakes. It is part of the platform. We're doing all of these things, and we're using AI to make our product better, to make you, the user of our product, better. And I think that's really interesting. And this is sort of playing into maybe Chord's book here a little bit, but that for me is resonating more than ever. If you've got really good data and you've got really good infrastructure, what are those opportunities for you to sort of leverage, whether it's an agentic workflow or being able to tap into these, like the wealth of LLMs that are available to us, but to get more from the hard work that you've ultimately been doing. So as an investor, you walking around the show floor, Are you feeling the same thing? Are you looking for something in particular in AI this year that maybe you weren't looking for last year?
Yeah. I have noticed the same thing. It is, and if you go back in time, ChatGPT released the end of 2022, Shop Talk 2023. People weren't really sure if it was a thing that was going to stick or not, right? It felt the AI wave coming, but it wasn't as strong. And then Shop Talk 2024, it was clear that this was going to be the future. And you saw a lot of technology vendors and startups and e-com enablement really trying to rush to build the right AI solution that they could eventually sell to brands. But it was still sort of that smirk, like we are an AI company, and investors would be like, oh yeah, we've heard this one before. It was just that like a little bit of a smirk when they said it. Now it's so clear that it's just embedded in everybody's workflows or everybody's product roadmap that you don't even need to say it. Yeah. You assume, yes, you're utilizing AI in one way or another, whether you're an AI native building LLMs or applications on top of LLMs, or you're just utilizing the best off the shelf technology to leverage in your current business. Whatever it is, it's unspoken now. It doesn't need to be said as much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. What I'm struggling to wrap my brain around is like practical advice that you can give to a brand or specifically someone in the marketing seat who is maybe feeling overwhelmed. Like we're not leveraging AI to the extent that we should be. Are we, we're suddenly being left behind. So what advice would you have for a brand operator who is, of all of the platforms that you've seen, like what things should they be thinking about adopting first that might have the most impact for their business?
Yeah. One of my best advice is with any platform shift, you want to be surrounded by people that are native to that technology. And so one of my best advice is hire people that have been using AI day in and day out. I always ask in my interview questions, what are your favorite AI applications? And ChatGPT or Perplexity is always the top one, but then going a layer deeper, what else? What are you using in your daily workflows? How are you leveraging AI in your personal and professional life? And I want people that are smarter at the tools than I am. Yeah. Right. Because I'm a millennial and I grew up using social platforms and now I've tried to adopt AI as much as I can, but I want to hire people that are so much faster at adopting this than me. Yeah. So that's one just, right out of the gate recommendation. I think the other is it just takes time. Yeah. It takes time to set aside a block of time to experiment with different platforms because the learning curve of getting on ChatGPT was fairly steep. It's pretty easy to adopt, but other workflow tools inside an organization, the AI features of Notion or Airtable or Superhuman, it just takes a little bit more time. But once you really start using them, you can never get rid of them, right? It's a sticky customer experience. And so investing that time to really understand like the AI tools at your disposal really makes a difference when you're, in your everyday workflows.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. This idea of that investing some time to learn the workflows, like we are in fact learning something different. So one of my interview questions is, how are you using ChatGPT? Let's open it up. Have you trained your own models? Like, are you using this differently than anyone else? Because when you first dive in, it feels like magic, and then it can feel somewhat generic. But there's real power there if you're willing to invest and sort of make it your own. And in ChatGPT, it can be ChatGPT, it can be any number of things.
Yeah. And there's just so many. If you're a commerce operator and a brand or a merchant, there's so much at your disposal. Yeah. I could plug so many SaaS solutions and AI solutions, but it's just there's no shortage of tools at your disposal. It's just finding the right people that want to employ those strategies. We talk about this a lot. Like one of my favorite quotes is, your job isn't going to be replaced by AI. Yeah, your job is going to be replaced by somebody that uses AI better than you. Yeah. And I fully subscribe to that. There's so many more opportunities for humans to be at the helm of decision making and made more powerful and better through the use of AI. Again, coming back to Chord, that's what got us very, very excited about what you were building. You building a marketing co-pilot does not replace the decision makers. It makes their jobs so much more lethal and effective.
Yeah.
And that's what we got excited about.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about. Like, so taking my technologist hat off, or asking you to take your investor hat off for just a second. We put our consumer hats on here. Like you said you're a millennial. I'm not a millennial. I'm considerably older than a millennial. I've been in commerce since 97, I think, if I think back to my biography. And I've seen a number of different waves. I've seen a lot of different technology that are like suddenly going to make commerce easy. Now, commerce is not easy. It has never been easy. I don't think AI is necessarily going to make it easier, but it is going to change it. But for me, I love the term iconic brand. And as I think about like what makes a brand iconic, it's that connection the brand has with its customer, the understanding of the product that they really want, the experience that they really want. And sometimes I get worried when we're so focused on data or being data driven that we lose that. We run the risk of losing that connection with the customer. We lose a little bit of that magic. Like, I love to shop. I love to, we're in Vegas, like you're surrounded by gambling and shopping.
Yeah.
But there's something nice about walking into a store and being treated the right way and discovering something on your own. So I think an awful lot about the products that we're building, our ability to leverage AI to give those marketers or these brand operators data superpowers to make them super lethal, because I never want to lose that connection. I never want a brand to lose its connection with me. It's like, I want to be friends with that brand.
Yeah.
And so does that resonate with you as a consumer? And B, is that a lens that you would look through as an investor when you're thinking about finding those right tools that are going to give someone that, that lethal competitive edge?
Yeah. I mean, the point, we think about this a lot, the point on using data as a very important, but just one of the tools at your disposal as the decision maker. A lot of times just being in industry, having a sixth sense for things, relying on, the quote unquote gut to make decisions, you pair that with data. And so, a lot of when we were looking at Chord, a lot of the customers we were talking to, Ruggable and Sonos, and you guys have a ton of really great, some of those iconic brands that have, just incredible communities and followings. They said it time and time again that they are in search for a better data platform that gives them the single source of truth to be able to make decisions. It's not making decisions for you. It's not relying 100% on the data. It's still, you need experienced operators to translate the data and figure out where you want to go with things. But you still need that human.
Yeah.
You need that human that is that has the experience, and AI can do so many things to connect the dots for the human marketer. But it is, nothing replaces that human touch. And I agree, by the way, one of the, as an investor investing in e-commerce, one of the areas that we're doing a lot of work in right now is the agentic shopper. And, there's a point in the very near future that you and I are going to be asking our personal agent shopper to shop on our behalf. Are they going to be doing 100% of our shopping? No, I believe that will never happen, because there are utility ways to shop where I just need my toilet paper. Yes. I just need my razor subscription. And there are entertaining or social ways to shop where you want to go to the mall or you want to discover something new. And that is actually part of the shopping journey. Like you said, there's that human touch to it. So while I have the technologist side of my brain very excited about agentic shopping, and I believe it'll be a huge part of the overall shopping TAM, you're not going to replace the whole pie with agents just crawling the internet everywhere. You want to still have that joy of shopping and finding something, the joy of discovery and the joy of, the social interaction that comes with shopping.
Yeah, like buying that thing, being excited to receive it on your doorstep and open it up. I have this slide in this presentation that I did where I've got this pile of Amazon boxes. And there's nothing, I think Amazon is an iconic brand in its own right, but that is an example of a data-driven brand. And the way that I tell this story is you kick over, you forget what you ordered, in those Amazon boxes, and maybe the way I should be telling it is, agents bought the things that are in those boxes, so you actually don't know what's in it. You just know that you probably need to open it and you need it. But you kick those boxes out of the way because there's that box that you're really excited to open.
Yeah.
And actually the picture that you just painted is something that I'm really excited about. Like, I would like for 60, 70, 80% of the shopping that I need to do, but don't really want to do, to be done for me, so that I can really focus my time discovering those products or interacting with those brands that truly bring me joy.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing can be applied to our workflows. If a lot of these things that I find I know I need to do, but that are difficult to do, can suddenly be made easier for me, then I can focus on the things that really bring me joy. And I think our customers are going to feel that, or, that would be my hope.
What was that last box for you that you kicked the Amazon boxes? What's the brand?
I'm going to plug a guest that was on my last episode of the podcast. So I discovered this brand called Born Primitive. Sort of a fitness junkie, and I like to discover like these next new brands. And so I had done my research before she came on, and the brand seemed super, super cool. And so I did some shopping, and the product arrived, and I was just excited to try their shoes. I was excited to try their shorts. And so I did kick some Amazon boxes out of the way. And
Brand Collective.
Yeah. No, Born Primitive.
Born Primitive. Sorry. Born Primitive. All right. I'm going to look them up.
Super cool brand, community driven, sort of the same thing, like they're trying to do more with first party data to strengthen the connection with their customer. So, the other thing you said in there too is this notion of a single source of truth that I don't think we're talking about enough. And if we were to give any of the listeners of this episode like practical advice that they can take back to their organization, is we can want all we want in terms of agentic workflows or leveraging AI. If our data is all over the place, like, we haven't earned the right to get started. And so whether you use Chord or whether you use something else, like, that's what I would go and focus on, is how do I get most of my data in one place? Again, I've seen all these different waves of commerce. I remember 10 or 15 years ago, there was a lot of talk around investing in first party data, but I didn't see an awful lot of action. It was just too easy to acquire customers on Facebook. That was what we were doing. But now more than ever, I want to encourage brands to think about that first party data that customers are trusting you with is gold. It's gold for you to be able to, yes, leverage AI to extract more value from, but really that's where you're going to make those better connections with customers.
Yeah, the single source of truth kept coming up. I'm not a brand operator. I don't pretend to be. But as part of my job, I talk to a lot of them, and I start to pick up on different data points and different complaints and different things that people love, things that people hate. And in our multiple conversations, this single source of truth kept coming up. It's almost like, it still happens a little bit with the hallucinations of some of the LLMs. But remember a year ago, a little bit before, where Gemini kind of had all these issues, and even ChatGPT had all these hallucinations. And so you could build all the incredible applications on top of them with research and video creation. But if you couldn't trust that the data was accurate, it was all for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a theme we've been hearing from a lot of merchants, in that they're using some very, very cool point solution AI applications for A/B testing or landing page optimization or attribution, multi-touch attribution. But occasionally marketers, they know their job, and in their gut, they were thinking, that just doesn't look right, right? That data source to me in our dashboard, it just seems off. And if I cross-check it with Google Analytics or some of my other dashboards, which is a problem in and of itself, where you're checking 2 or 3 or 4 sources.
The numbers different.
The numbers are different. So you can't rely on the data, and you can eventually get to it because you have the source of truth. It just takes time.
Yeah.
And so some of the common complaints we were getting is, you just can't, there's not a single source of truth to trust. And so there's a lot of dashboards and analytics and attribution tools out there. But when, we really started to dive in about the value prop you were solving at Chord, first starting with the data and integrity, reliability of data, in our opinion, gave you the right to win and build those applications on top of it because people could trust. And that was the first question we asked when we talked to all of the numerous customers you have is, can you trust the data?
Yeah.
And everybody came back with a resounding, yeah, it's like the only one, right? And so that gave us a lot of excitement of what you were able to do on top of that. We don't believe just, building a CDP is gonna do it for this market. They want a lot of the tools and AI powered applications on top, which we think you guys are well positioned to build. But that was just a through line in the many conversations that we were having.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. It's something we're really proud of. Like sometimes it doesn't sound all that sexy to talk about, having trustworthy, reliable data that's in one place.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't like what the data tells you, but I think it's definitely the place.
It's sexy to CTOs. It's sexy to CIOs. It's sexy to a certain contingent of econ operators.
Yes. Given my background as a CTO, maybe it's not surprising that that's what we focused on. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate all of that. Any key takeaways so far for you? I know it's only been 2 days so far in Shop Talk, but is there something that's really surprised you that you're gonna, you've already taken back to the team, or something you want to dig into some more?
We so Shop Talk is doing something new this year where they have almost like a new world inside of Shop Talk I think it's called the New World. It's all about AI's impact on advertising and marketing. And that's where I have a lot of passion internally at M13 of looking at tools that are impacting the way that e-commerce merchants advertise, market to consumers, and how consumers interact with advertising. So kind of like what I talked about before, using agentic shoppers, I think is much closer than we actually think. And then on the merchant side, how do you build your website infrastructure to cater towards agentic shoppers versus human shoppers?
Yeah.
So very different buyer profiles, and they shop in a very, very different way. And so I think a lot of the themes that I've been keying in on are, in this new world where people are searching for your brand on ChatGPT or some of the other search engines, where they're using an AI agent to shop on their behalf, where AI is really powering discovery eventually for consumers. How are merchants reacting? What are they using to convert not only humans, but AI agents on their website? So.
Yeah. It's fascinating that you call ChatGPT a search engine just there. It's my go-to search now. Yeah. It's
I mean, the data is pretty clear. Adobe just came out with their latest trends report a few weeks ago. And, it was I can't remember the exact percentage, but a very high percentage of shoppers are now going first to ChatGPT over Google. And Google is not going to go away. Like people have said, oh, this is the Google killer. No, they have Gemini. They're going to be just fine. But it's my belief, it's no longer going to be a 95% market share business like it has over the last 20 years. It's going to be a very fragmented. ChatGPT is a clear leader, Gemini, but people love and swear by Claude, and people love and swear by Perplexity. And there are several others that are up and coming as well, but it'll be much more fragmented. So it'll be a very interesting search engine, not to mention the social platforms that are leveraging Meta with Llama and X with Grok. And, there are infinite numbers of ways to search for things now. And so they're all search engines.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be interesting to see, I find myself hopping from platform to platform, and that feels somewhat inefficient. And so it's what platform is going to be the one that is going to be able to do more of what I need, in a single place, so that if I train it to be smarter, to know me better, I think that's ultimately what I'm going to, how I'm going to choose, because they do feel like they're getting somewhat commoditized. And the technology side of it, I think what you bring up there is fascinating. For years, we built websites in a certain way so that they would be SEO optimized. And, you think about the entire keyword industry. And now you not only have to think about SEO optimization, but it's, how am I optimized for agents that are crawling this?
Yeah.
And how am I going to show up how is ChatGPT or Gemini going to interpret this page so that when I do show those results to the end user, they're like, that's the thing. Yeah,
because there are a lot of terms thrown around. We'll see what we end up on, but generative engine optimization, so GEO, LLM engine optimization, whatever you want to call it. it is definitely changing the way that marketers are thinking about their brand messaging and how they optimize for these, because instead of, SEO has been cracked for a number of years, and there's a number of things you can do to show up as, on the first page of Google results. But now with the generative AI engines, it's more about having you be the first answer, because there are no longer the blue links for you to click through. You just want the answer, so you get the answer, and it might give you a couple of options in your answer, but there's no longer being like the 7th or 8th blue link. Right. You need to be one of the answers.
Yeah. And those pages are getting pushed further down. Not only do we have the sponsored results, but we now have the Gemini consolidated answer for you. So like there is no more first page.
Correct.
And it's not just, for me, it's not just the search listings. I was talking with a brand last night, a Canadian retailer, huge presence, going through a replatform right now. And there was this debate around, do we put product reviews back on the page? And I was like, well, where do product reviews go? Are you going to go through 20 pages of product reviews to try to decide if that's the Nike that you want to wear? Is this going to be a comfortable shoe, or are you just going to ask Claude or ChatGPT, like, can you tell me what you can do, what I should know about this shoe? And it's like, it's still going to need that content somewhere. So we're still going to have to generate that somewhere, somehow. But yeah, this whole shopping paradigm, or that traditional PDP and experience, and how we optimize it to make sure that someone adds to their basket, and then we think about checking out. We've got to be very open-minded. It's all going to be changing. So to the point that I tried to make earlier, commerce is not easy. And there's going to be this balance that we need to strike between having that intuition as consumers and as marketers and as technologists to use it the right way, but we still need to bring the customer along.
Yeah.
I hope we do.
I know. I hope we all do as well. Throwing it back at you, what was the insight to move on from, Chord, a lot of people know, started as a headless platform, and you were building that infrastructure for consumers to interact in a different way with the website. And as an investor being in the space in 2019, 2020, when it really started going, it was a very exciting time, and it was the forefront of technology. And then, somewhere along the way, you guys made the decision to change direction a little bit and build a CDP. So what was that insight for you?
Well, we always had it. I think back to that first pitch deck we had when we became Chord, we cheekily or jokingly said we were headless with a brain. So as there was this move towards building your technology stack with best of breed components, I, as someone who had done that for a long time before headless was coined as a term, found that the more best of breed components you brought to bear on a problem, the more data problems you ultimately created. So we founded Chord, or we started Chord with the first as a software platform that we as brand operators were using. So we really dog fooded it through the creation of our own brands. But we started with the data stack, because after 20 years in commerce, getting data right, having that single source of truth, for me, was the hardest problem. But it was a problem no one saw, because in commerce, we were so focused on the storefront and the shopping cart and the order management system like that. That's what was e-commerce. But data, it was always the thing. So we always had it. But I was a real purist that in order to get the best data, we as a platform wanted to control everything. We wanted to control the transactional layer. We wanted to control the storefront. And there was a ton of interest, both from brands and investors, into this emerging space that was called headless commerce, which later became composable commerce, as a further acknowledgement to, you just need the best of breed component for every part of your stack. And I think academically, that's interesting. Practically, it just doesn't work. And in all of the meetings that I had today at Shop Talk, the trend that I was seeing was, we want consolidation. Like, best of breed sounds really great, but it means we need to hire a really big technology team. And then there's this real risk of brain drain. Let's say we do hire a team, they put it all together and they leave the organization. Now what do we do? And so we basically adjusted to what the market was telling us. So I used to do these demos where I was so proud to show the platform. We'd start with the data product, and then we would show the rest of the commerce platform. And prospects were saying, well, we want to use the data product. And I used to tell them, great, you need to replatform. And they would look at me like I was kidding. I was like, no, but seriously, that's what you need to do. And it's easy. Replatforms are easy. They're like, no, commerce is hard enough. You're asking me to replatform? Absolutely not. And so I got tired of hearing no. And so we really brought this idea to the product team, said, well, what if we just sold the data product? What if we listened to the market and became storefront agnostic and OMS agnostic? And really, we were sitting on top of something that seemingly the market wanted to use. And we understood OMS, we understood storefront because we had built our own products. And we started to get traction there. Early on, very transparently, I had pushback from the team.
Yeah.
Our DNA was a commerce infrastructure company. That's what we did. But we also did data. We always did data. And so it was really just listening to the market, responding, looking and working for that product market fit, starting to feel it. And then you start to get that momentum. And we went in that direction. But the way that I tell the story is we didn't suddenly decide to be a data company. We always had data. It was the first thing that we worked on. It just took us a while to figure out that was enough.
Yeah.
That we didn't need to do the full platform.
Do you remember the moment or the brand conversation where you felt like this is product market fit? This is incredible.
Yeah. I think I can be convinced that we had it on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
We're still working on it, honestly. I think it's tough. The landscape is changing really quickly. When I remember demoing an early version of Chord as we were starting this pivot to the Sonos team, and like brutal feedback. It was like, we're not quite sure what you do. And 6 months later, I remember tapping them on the shoulder saying, would you mind having a look at the product again? They're like, what is that? I was like, well, this is Chord. They're like, no, it's not. That is not what you showed us. And that next demo was so impactful that it informed how they wrote an RFP when they went to market to buy a CDP. And they said, we are going to include you in this RFP. And so almost against all odds, early stage company going through a pivot, we got invited to compete against really some platforms that I hold in extremely high regard. Great products. Our solution, it started to show me that we were differentiated. We were end-to-end. We were CDP, but more than CDP. We now say smarter CDP. And what I mean by that is we're bringing in data not just through CDP, but we're modeling that data. We're providing business intelligence. And then crucially, we were allowing them to activate the data. So we eventually won that RFP. So that, I think, if I were to answer the question in a less long-winded way, I would say when Sonos chose us, and through that process, they said, you're not a CDP, you're a commerce data platform, capital CDP. And we tried to cling to that for a little bit. But I think like when these iconic brands took a chance on what we were building and gave us great feedback, that was really sort of validating. I was like, if we can solve it for them and we can solve it for them, then there's more behind them. So that was a really proud moment.
Amazing. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. I think that's probably a pretty decent note to end on. I'm going to get out of the hot seat here. Didn't let you turn the script on me too much, but yeah, Brent, thank you so much. We put this together at the last minute. Really appreciate your willingness at the end of a long shop talk day to sit down with me and chat all things data, investment, Chord, and brand. It was a real pleasure.
Of course. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on, and looking forward to being in the trenches with you. This is going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, I can't wait. Awesome. Thanks, man.